When I was a kid, back in '96, there were two reasons that I picked up the first few issues of Heroes Reborn Fantastic Four. The first was because it was a #1 issue, and if there was one thing I knew as a kid, it was that #1 issues are eventually worth money. So yeah, if it had a #1 on it, I bought it. Nothing complicated about that. The second reason, though, was for Jim Lee's artwork. Nobody draws like Jim Lee. I'm not saying that he's the best artist in the world, or even my personal favorite, but no one can deny the man's talent when they look at his art. His pages are dynamic, his characters well defined, and he's able to convey both big action moments and smaller, quieter moments. There is a reason that the guy has had as much success as he's had. So yeah, you launch a new book with Jim Lee drawing it, and you've got 12-year-old Ben's money. Easy. The Heroes Reborn universe launched in November of 1996. Fantastic Four was actually co-written by Jim Lee and Brandon Choi, one of Lee's longtime partners over at Image Comics. He helped launch Wildcats with Lee, although he is perhaps best known for co-creating Gen 13 with Jim Lee and J. Scott Campbell. Lee was inked by Scott Williams, another guy that Lee has a long history of working with. Colors were provided by Joe Chiodo and Martin Jimenez, and was lettered by Richard Starkings and Comic Craft's Dave Landfear. The book ultimately ran for only 13 issues, with Lee leaving as artist after 6, but that's okay. We get 6 full issues of Lee's glorious artwork. So let's stop wasting time and get into this thing. We open with former military pilot Ben Grimm testing Reed Richards' new rocket, the Excelsior. Reed and Ben are old friends going back to their college days, and they work well together. They've been hired by the Storm Foundation to finish the ship so that they can explore a strange stellar anomaly that's appeared near Earth. Their main point of contact is acting head of the Foundation, Susan Storm. In what I'm sure is a breach of employee-contractor etiquette, even in 1996, Sue and Reed appear to be in a relationship. Sue's younger brother and business partner, Johnny Storm, arrives late to the shenanigans, but unfortunately, the Storms aren't the only group interested in the anomaly. A S.H.I.E.L.D. agent named Wyatt Wingfoot arrives with a crew of dark glasses and takes over everything. Sue and Johnny try to argue this, but Wingfoot has proof that their uncle, the CEO of the Foundation, has signed his approval for them to take this whole thing over. They have to cooperate, and they especially cooperate when Wingfoot kills one of the Storm scientists who protest their actions. Wingfoot needs the Storms to launch the ship, but there are a lot of people here that they don't need. With little choice in the matter, Reed and Ben are taken away while the Storms start the launch sequence. Once finished, they too are taken away for safekeeping. From their cell, Reed and Ben can see the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents loading something onto the ship. Reed guesses that the mystery objects are nuclear weapons and then takes another shot in the dark. Wingfoot is going to destroy the stellar anomaly. Before they're locked up, Sue and Johnny escape their captors. They save Ben and Reed, who explain the thing about the nukes. None of them want to see the anomaly destroyed. I mean, hell, no one actually knows what nuking it could do. Plus, there's pride at stake. That's their ship they're stealing, damn it. Oh, and with the facility locked down for the launch, there's really only one way that they can get out. The prototype of the Excelsior. And that's a rocket, so I mean, that has to launch too, so they're going into space one way or the other. They launch successfully, hot on the heels of the Excelsior, but they're just a step behind. As the prototype closes in, Reed starts to pick up subatomic radiation emissions coming from the anomaly. This seems to confirm Reed's hypothesis that the anomaly is actually a wormhole, and that these emissions are some kind of signal. This could be first contact. Reed starts to record the emissions and notices a code inside of it. Strangely, the emissions seem to be aimed at 2 locations on Earth. And then, even more surprisingly, the anomaly coalesces into a humanoid shape. And that is when the Excelsior fires. The anomaly explodes, bathing the prototype with exotic energy. The prototype was never meant to actually fly into space or pass through this kind of radiation. As such, it doesn't have any kind of shielding. The crew screams as Ben fights to control the ship as it falls back to Earth. He does such a good job of piloting that he manages to miss all of the water on the planet and crashes onto a mysterious island. Oh, and by the way, Wingfoot is revealed not to be a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent. He's actually working for this mysterious group called the Dharma Initiative. After he finishes monologuing about this, we see Reed wake up, and there's a polar bear sniffing his face. What? Nah, I'm lying. Wingfoot's actually working for Dr. Doom. That guy's a jerk. Johnny is the first to regain his senses on the island, and he's pretty surprised to find that he's on fire. He freaks out and in his panic launches himself into the sky. With no real idea of what's going on, he dives into some water and he's fine. He's not burned? Oh, okay, well, whatever. He needs to find the others, and he finds something on the beach. A long, warm, fleshy ribbon. He finds a hand at one end and reels in the rest of it. And it turns out that it's Reed. While still choking on seawater, Reed postulates about how they got these strange abilities, correctly deducing that it was the radiation from the blast. Johnny can light himself on fire, while Reed's body has become like elastic. Reed pulls the black box from the prototype's wreckage, which just happens to be conveniently right there, and now they need to find Ben and Sue. Further inland, we catch Ben in mid-transformation. His body starts to harden into rock, and he screams, which catches the attention of Sue. She heard him, but she doesn't see him, so instead she investigates a beeping piece of wreckage. It's the ship's quantum drive, and it's damaged. If the unstable reactor blows, it's going to destroy the entire island. Sue runs off, needing to find the others, and succeeds. She almost literally bumps into Ben, who's been turned into some kind of thing. Suddenly they're attacked. A monstrous roar reverberates through the cave. This draws in Johnny and Reed, but the ground drops out underneath them. They find themselves surrounded by thin men with sickly yellow skin and bulbous eyes, covered by some kind of sunglasses. As these little dudes, who are called moloids by the way, take Reed and Johnny deeper into the island, Reed notices strange symbols that line the tunnels. Those symbols appear to match the emissions that Reed picked up from the anomaly. This island must be one of the two places connected to the anomaly. But how? Later for that. Johnny and Reed arrive at the main cavern and see Ben and Sue chained to a massive stone inside a huge chamber. An enormous monster approaches, but Ben is too out of it to notice, wrapped up in his own self-pity. He hears Sue scream, and then she's gone. Unaware that she turned invisible, Ben busts free and beats the crap out of the monster. Sue then reappears, much to Ben's relief, and then Johnny and Reed finally jump in. The happy reunion is short-lived as they notice the defective quantum drive. It's only a matter of time before it blows, and that time's about to get eaten up by the pontificating of the Mole Man. He's somehow going to use the drive to bring humanity to its knees and somehow make an example of the Four. What a yahoo. And what an opening issue! Holy crap, was it nice to reread this book. There's always the risk when you go back and read some material that you loved as a kid of it actually being crap, but not here. The art is gorgeous, the writing is good, and the characters are spot on. So let's get into some of the details. Right off the bat, this book looks great. Jim Lee and inker Scott Williams, who work together to this day, pair wonderfully. Lee's interpretations are, for my tastes, perfect. Reed is handsome but not too built, always staring into something with total focus. Ben, on the other hand, is thicker around the torso, a bit broader of face. Sue is in shape, although she occasionally has this beehive-looking hairdo. I'm only surprised at the hair because everything else feels pretty modern, even now, like 20 years later, and the hair looks so out of place to me. Johnny is handsome but cold, scowling when he's dismissed or teased. The men are handsome, the women are beautiful, and it's hard for me to argue with any of this. I mean, I do want to give a special mention to Martin Jimenez and Wildstorm FX for the colors in this book, though. We start off in the desert with lots of warm colors, then transition to this wonderful neon green when the Four escape into space. Then we close in dark blues and purples after the crash. It's a great transition, and the details they emphasize with the coloring are wonderful. Lee does a lot of sculpting with his lines, adding depth to faces or bodies, and they're always well lit, so there's lots of shadow to use. It's just a perfect pairing. The basic story is pretty much a faithful adaptation of the original. Four friends go into space, get zapped, become superheroes. But Lee, who co-wrote the book with Brandon Choi, decompresses it all, allowing us to get to know the cast better. We have a good sense of the group dynamic going into the momentous change, and I like that. It's kind of funny that decompressed storytelling wouldn't really catch on for a couple more years, because I think that this is one of the earliest examples that I can think of, and it's perfectly executed. Having Doom be tied into their origins is a neat touch too, and I love how they develop their powers. It's been long noticed that the Fantastic Four have, basically, the powers of the four elements. The Torch is fire, the Thing is earth, Reed is fluid like water, and Sue's invisibility is like the air. But we get some neat catalysts here to explain these changes. After the exposure, Johnny awakens in fire, so he adapts to it. Reed is in the water, stretching towards the surface. Ben hits the mountain, becoming rocky, and Sue wishes to disappear when the monster comes at her, so she does. I like the idea that the powers are kind of imprinted on them, rather than just being some weird random mutations. Perhaps my only complaint, artistically, is the Mole Man, and that's just because he's jacked. Now, yeah, I guess there's no rule that the Mole Man has to be a dumpy-looking piece of crap, but that's the classic design, right? And it helps to reinforce the idea that society originally shunned him due to his physical ugliness, which fostered emotional ugliness, driving him underground. Anyway, let's get into this guy's plan. It's time for issue 2. Okay, so the Mole Man's plan is to destroy one of the surface cities with a quantum drive, thus proving himself to, someone? He specifically says that he's going to prove himself, but he doesn't mention to who. And once he's done so, then he'll get to rule the Earth. I mean, this is all new to me. The Mole Man doesn't traditionally ally with others, so who is he trying to impress? As the Human Torch blazes into action, we also learn that the Mole Man has heightened senses and superior agility. This guy's an ugly Captain America. Who knew? Mole Man takes Johnny down with both his energy staff and some helpfully mind-controlled moss? I didn't know he could do that either. And after he does so, he also states that he can sense that they are not the children of the Great One, capital G, capital O. There goes my own pet theory that he was working with Doom. Maybe that'd be too much Doom right off the bat, though. Ah, well. Working together with guidance from Reed, the four manage to blind the Mole Man and his forces and escape with the quantum drive. Ben knocks the tunnel in, which gives Reed time to shut down the drive. Free and no longer under the threat of getting blown up, the friends catch their breath, pondering what their futures now hold. That's when they're suddenly enveloped by a bright light. We then cut to Atlantis, which I'd like to give a quick hell yeah! I've always been fascinated by Atlantis, even in real life, and it's one of my favorite concepts in the Marvel Universe. Anyway, Lord Krang is trying to get past Lady Dorma to see the king. But she won't allow it. The king is grieving the loss of his beloved, which is exactly why Krang needs to see him. The land dwellers are killing Atlanteans with their pollution. The entire population is at risk. Case in point, Krang's cousin rolls up with the dead body of his own fiancée. Taken back, Lady Dorma can't stop Krang from barging in upon Namor. Lost in his own grief, it doesn't take much prodding from Krang to sell Namor on invasion. Imperious Rex, baby. Our heroes wake up in a cell of some kind. Reed guesses that they were hit with a synaptic scrambler, but even he doesn't know where they are. I enjoyed the overall writing here, but why the hell would you know where you are, Reed? You were kidnapped off a mysterious island by who knows what. You shouldn't know where you are. So Reed then manages to figure out, by looking at the walls, that one of the walls is fake due to its slightly translucent appearance. Plus, that means that they're probably being watched. Then, if Reed's memory serves, these walls are a Stark Industries vibranium alloy, meaning that they'll absorb any impact upon them. So they can't punch their way out of the room either. But Reed has another idea. As a quick aside, I hate this scene. There's a large panel of the four in their cells, and there's some perspective issues with Ben's hand, which is a minor complaint, especially in a book where everything else is gorgeous, but it's a reminder that Jim Lee is human. And I also hate Reed in this. I get that he's an incredible scientist. I get that he can figure out stuff quickly, but he can recognize a wall just by looking at it, and somehow know that it's made of vibranium alloy? What, does he have science vision? And how does he recognize the wall if he's never been in this place, as he just stated? On my first read-through, I breezed right past this. And why wouldn't I? But I've been through this issue 6 times now, writing this podcast, and it stood out more and more every time. I'm willing to let Reed know it all his way out of most situations, but this one just didn't work for me. Alright, back to the action. Johnny lights up, sick of being jerked around by life. Reed stretches a hand over the observation wall so that their captors can't learn of their powers, and then has Johnny burn a hole in the opposite wall. When the 4 get into the hallway, Ben recognizes the guard's uniform. They're S.H.I.E.L.D. They've been kidnapped by S.H.I.E.L.D. Crap, man. Reed has Johnny put up a wall of fire to block the guards while Ben starts punching through walls. While Ben does ask if these are those Stark walls, he ignores Reed's comment about one being structural. So now Reed has X-ray vision. Great. But that wall leads to the exterior of their prison and is a few miles up in the air. Reed had heard about the helicarrier, but he never believed that the rumors could be true. He stretches out to grab Ben, but S.H.I.E.L.D.'s air cavalry flies in and collects the 4. They're fitted with synaptic dampeners and taken to the man in command, Nicholas Fury. Before he addresses the 4, Fury gets an update regarding Namor's forces. They're massing near Manhattan, but there's little that S.H.I.E.L.D. can do right now. The force is too large to repel by hand, and the carrier can't reach it before they'll make landfall. So, Fury turns to the Fantastic Four. He knows that they blew up the anomaly, so who the hell are they, and why did they do it? Reed explains about Wingfoot, who was a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent, remember, and how they tried to stop him. Before he can say more, Namor attacks the city. Fury thinks that even S.H.I.E.L.D. may not be able to stop him this time. So here comes wall expert Reed Sherlock Richards Holmes. He knows that S.H.I.E.L.D. is aware of their powers, which means that they know how they got them from the stellar anomaly. But Fury has kept them safe as well, so clearly he has a need for them. So why did S.H.I.E.L.D. send Wingfoot to destroy the anomaly? They didn't. Fury explains that Wingfoot has gone rogue. He never authorized the mission to destroy the anomaly. But he incarcerated the 4 to determine if they were working with him. He can see now that they aren't. He also apologizes when Sue mentions the scientist that Wingfoot killed. Sue then makes the leap that Fury wants their help against Namor, and they'll do it. They're given fresh S.H.I.E.L.D. combat uniforms, which are made of Reed's unstable molecules, not that they got permission to use them. Before they launch, Sue marks their uniforms with a 4, so that everyone knows that they aren't working for S.H.I.E.L.D. They're their own team. Reed picks up that ball and rolls with it, christening them the Fantastic Four. Roll credits. The 4 then go to New York and start slugging it out with Namor. The Thing slams into him, knocking him back into the water. Here, though, Namor is undisputed and he makes short work of Ben. Dumping him off, Namor declares that if humanity is going to bring superpowered beings to war, then he'll respond in kind. He blows into his trumpet horn and summons Giganto, an enormous mutated whale monster. It's cliffhanger time, baby! And that's actually something that this book does really well, the pacing of it. The first issue was a slow build, but number 2 was non-stop action. We escaped Monster Island, we met Namor, escaped from S.H.I.E.L.D., met Nick Fury, and then started fighting Namor. Screw you, decompressed storytelling, we're going to pedal to the flippin' metal here. And I am loving these cliffhangers. God, I remember buying this issue when it first came out in '96 and how excruciatingly awesome it was to finish an issue on that big moment. You want me to come back month after month? Drop some of that on me. I really enjoyed Namor's introduction here as well. This is a good update on a character who classically just charges into any and every battle. But now there's some weight to it. The woman he loved is dead by the land dweller's hand. There's a full-page shot of Namor just brooding, his face tucked against his chest, lost in his emotions. Then his grief turns to anger, and we see the Namor we know and tolerate. Lee and Choi didn't change who Namor is, they just added another level of emotion to him. Could they have done something other than fridge some poor woman off-camera who we've never met and thus have no emotional connection with? I don't know. I mean, there's a lot to get in here, and Namor gets 1 page of introduction before we start to get back into the thick of things. On the one hand, I understand that they had to work quickly, but on the other hand, this feels like the easiest, laziest thing to possibly do. I gloss over a decent bit of character work here. It's incredibly hard to keep these summations moving when poking at every interaction, but it all works pretty well. Johnny remains the brash hothead, charging into conflict with both the Mole Man and S.H.I.E.L.D. Ben introduces Reed and us to Nick Fury, a nice nod to his background as a military pilot. Sue demands answers from Fury, her success as acting head of the Storm Foundation kicking in. Oh, and when the four take their name, Johnny mentions the potential licensing deals they could get. He's a businessman now, and I like his let's make a profit while saving people mentality. It helps to round out a character that classically has nothing but partying in his background. I also like their take on Fury here. He's distant and cold, but he's not mean. He's a man with the world on his shoulders, and he needs help. I have one general nagging doubt about the overall tone of the book, but I'm going to hold off on that until I finish the entire arc. Issue 3 promises the Avengers, and I can see Thor and Captain America on the cover, so let's stop wasting time. So, hey, get this. In issue 3, the Avengers show up. It's only Cap and Thor, which is weird, because I'm looking at the cover to Avengers #1, and there's more than just those two, but whatever, let's not worry about that. Hey Avengers, we're going to go help stop the Atlanteans from taking over New York. You guys want to help? No? Okay, cool. Well, let's go, Thor. I mean, maybe Lee didn't want to draw all those heroes. The Avengers get shot down by Giganto, and yeah, you better believe that he has Godzilla fire breaths, and Namor boasts in the streets. Sue suddenly appears from thin air and tries to reason with Namor. She's hot, so he's willing to listen. Literally. Quote, "Your courage is matched only by your beauty, human," unquote. But, fearing for Sue, Reed suddenly jumps in and tries to subdue Namor. The prince shrugs off that nerd and then faces attacks from the Torch and the Thing. While Ben is distracted by a crowd thinking he's another Atlantean monster, really? Namor slugs him through a building. That then gives Thor an opening, and both he and Captain America try to reason with him. At first, Namor doubts that this is the real Captain America. I mean, they fought together over 50 years ago. But Steve pulls his mask off, and Namor has to take him seriously now. Lord Krang sees this, and it is not good for his plans. Namor was supposed to die in this assault, giving Krang the throne. He can't miss this chance. As Krang prepares, a still loopy Ben flashes back. He had been living in Wyoming when Sue approached him about the Excelsior project. This wasn't the first time she asked, nor was it the first time he said no. But someone in Eastern Europe hacked the Storm's computers, stealing files related to the Excelsior project. Ben helped redesign the new astro navigation system, and they need that edge. But Ben still says no. Not because he isn't interested, but because he's more interested in Sue. He won't let himself move on his best friend's girl. But when Sue calls him a coward, he caves. Whatever problems he has, he'll deal with them. That's when his hand suddenly begins to change into stone and he wakes up. Ben is inside the art gallery turned makeshift hospital of blind sculptress Alicia Masters. Ben tries to talk her into leaving, most especially because she's blind, but she won't. Alicia put her heart and soul into her gallery. She can't leave it now. And as for being blind, well, everyone has problems. She won't let hers control her life. What's important is what's in a person's heart, and she thinks Ben's is the heart of a hero. Ready for round 3, Ben hits the streets. They need some way to stop Giganto, and Ben's got a plan. Meanwhile, Namor is finally listening to reason. Before they can settle things, he suddenly collapses, though. Lady Dorma thinks that he's contracted the same plague that's killed so many Atlanteans. Struggling to stay upright, Namor tells Dorma to stop the attack, and that's when Krang attacks. He blasts Namor, explains his evil plan, and it is time to fight. While Cap, Thor, and the Torch fight Krang's hordes, Sue, Reed, and Dorma get Namor to a hospital. They need Namor to call off the attack, but they can't do that if he's dead. Fury delivers a fighter jet to Ben, plus the quantum drive. Ben yanks him out of the seat and takes the controls. The only way they're stopping that whale is by shoving this thing down its throat. Ben does his best to distract Giganto as it nears the hospital. Inside, Reed has discovered the cause of Namor's illness. He's been poisoned by a carefully derived compound made from sea wasp venom. He's injected antitoxins into Namor, but he's a hybrid, and Reed is suddenly being choked by Namor. It seems like he's doing a lot better. But he can't stop Giganto, not without the trumpet horn. Reed tells Fury the news, who then turns around and tells him about Ben's plan. Reed tries to talk Ben out of it, but he isn't listening. He sets the quantum drive to blow and aims for Giganto's maw. Sue begs Ben not to do this, and he won't lie, he thought about staying with that, but he jumps at the last second. The torch swoops in and catches Ben as the drive implodes, reducing Giganto to dust. Horrified, Krang's plans are going up like a mutated whale caught up in a sci-fi explosion. And then Namor orders his army to stand down. The Atlanteans are allowed to retreat. Namor says his goodbyes, promising to bring his concerns up in more legitimate channels. No one's worried about the damage done, or lives lost, or retribution. They're all just free to go. And that's when the real threat emerges. The paparazzi. They swarm the Fantastic Four, making them the talk of the town. In the aftermath, the lives of the four settle down. S.H.I.E.L.D. is still investigating the Storm Foundation, as well as the disappearance of their uncle Matthew. Sue and Johnny had to cut their ties to the Foundation, but Sue's excited for the new challenges that lie ahead. Reed has partnered with Saul Baxter, giving them a new home in the Baxter Building. The White House has even sanctioned the four as freelance troubleshooters. What does that mean? You got me? I'm assuming the government pays the Fantastic Four to just be themselves and explore things and save the day when the day needs saving. The only real downsides are that Agent Wingfoot is still in the wind. Ben is still a rock monster too. And he owes Fury a cigar. Cue the laugh track. It's okay, so the ending is a bit 60s sitcom, but it's a nice wrap-up. I like that there are some real-world repercussions to this. S.H.I.E.L.D. looking into the storms, them leaving their family's company. I'm disappointed that there was no real follow-up on the attack, though. Like, all I needed was Namor going, "Oh, hey, Atlantis will provide labor and materials to help fix the places we attacked," and I'd have been fine. I'm also sad that there was no follow-up regarding Namor's complaints. I mean, his people are literally dying due to land dweller pollution. It's the whole cause of this fight, but he lets it all slide after Krang's betrayal. I mean, perhaps if they added in that Krang was inflating the numbers of those dying by poisoning innocent Atlanteans, I'd feel more disgust towards Krang and more sympathy for Namor if that had been the case. I really appreciate that Sue is the first one to try to reason with Namor. As a successful businesswoman, she has to stay calm and work with others, and out of everyone, she's the best suited to the job. Sue has always been the heart of the Fantastic Four, and I think that this shows it well. She doesn't do much during the fighting, though, which is pretty disappointing. Sue has one of the most versatile powers and is one of the most powerful members of the Fantastic Four in classic continuity, but here she's pretty much just Ambassador Storm. I like the flashback scene that Ben got. The definitely in love with Sue bit is new, at least to my knowledge, and adds a new, subtle dynamic to their relationship. Despite being very down-to-earth and, a bit more simple or plain compared to his friends, Ben Grimm is ultimately an honorable, good man. He knows that Reed loves Sue, and he does his best to stay out of it. Now, yeah, staying out of it means isolating himself in Wyoming and not having any contact with some of his best friends, but that's better than tearing them all apart. But in the end, his friends need him, and that matters more than how he feels. Oh, and I like the continued teasing of Doom. Given that the first 3 issues kind of work as one story arc, I like that we're getting a lot of setup for Doom. The transition to meeting Alicia is a good one. The way both stories highlight Ben's heroic qualities, despite his monstrous appearance, is wonderful. This read-through also brought a new thought to mind. When Ben dives into Giganto's throat, with Reed and Sue begging him not to, he comments that he could just take this way out. And before, as a kid, I just thought he was willing to die in order to save lives. But this time, I realized that this was almost suicide by heroic sacrifice. Unable to love the woman he cares for, trapped in a rocky shell, Ben has every reason to just fly into Giganto and put an end to it. But he doesn't. Because things might be hard, he might have problems, but he won't let them control his life. Thank you, Alicia. Namor's been stopped. The Fantastic Four have been introduced to the world, but there are still some questions hanging over the group. What came through the wormhole? How was it connected to Mole Man? What was that second location Reed picked up? What is Doom up to? And where is Wyatt Wingfoot? Let's see what issue 4 brings. Oh, it brings a dead guy. Exciting. So we get a 1-page opening in which something green with claws is stalking a hunter in the African nation of Wakanda. The hunter had been sent with a larger party to investigate the mysterious object that fell out of the stellar anomaly a few weeks ago. He's the last man standing, and even that doesn't last long. On a much brighter note, in New York, Johnny Storm is shopping for action figures. Hey, that ain't bad. He gets recognized by a horde of young women and is chased out of the store. And it's a good thing, too, because a fiery 4 hangs in the air. The emergency flare. The Human Torch flies off to the Baxter building, unaware that a mysterious person is watching him. Ben Grimm, meanwhile, is being escorted around by Richie, a young man who was apparently a worker on Reed's Excelsior project before Wingfoot commandeered it for Doom. I don't remember this guy at all, but whatever. I'll take your word for it, I guess. Ben can't fit in or operate a car anymore due to his size, but he could pilot the extremely roomy jet in the last issue. I guess that Nick Fury is a plus-sized guy. So this is the only way he has of finding Alicia again. Ben thinks he spots Alicia, so he goes to open the door, but his hands don't fit. So he basically tears the roof off, startling the woman. To his embarrassment, it isn't Alicia, though. To his further embarrassment, she's still interested in him. Ben Grimm, you handsome devil, way to go. Thankfully, the emergency flare catches his attention, and he just doesn't have the time to exchange numbers. Gotta go. Okay, thanks, bye. Johnny arrives at the Baxter building to find Sue on the roof. Understandably, he asks what's the crisis, and the crisis is his response time. Sue has taken it upon herself to get the team trained, and she needs Johnny to take this seriously. And, by the way, why is he wearing a red costume? Their costumes are blue. His answer? Licensing deals, sis. Now he can produce 2 different action figures, one in classic blue and one in combat mode red. The possibilities for merch are endless. The pair head inside and meet up with Ben, who somehow made it back first in New York traffic, and Reed, who has 2 bits of news. The first is that Reed has been studying the changes to their molecular and genetic structures. This has led him to a strange thought. Everyone has taken to these changes so easily, as if they've always had these powers. But why? These have been some huge changes, but they're all pretty down with them. Even Ben is pretty nonchalant about all this, and he's a rock monster. None of the others seem to think that this is weird, though, so Reed just moves on. Before I do, though, I want to comment on some structuring here. It's interesting to me that we open on Johnny and Ben, the 2 characters with, in my opinion, the most personality in the book. They're out doing things detached from being superheroes, while Reed and Sue are the serious mom and dad, let's focus on the plot guys of the group. It kind of bums me out that neither Reed or Sue are interesting enough to warrant their own storylines. But Reed has the science thing, you say. And sure, but honestly, that's just Reed spouting plot points. There is no emotional context or drive. Reed does science because the plot demands it. My second point is Reed's commentary on their powers. I don't know if this is a new idea that will be further explored, but I think this is a hit to the previous reality of the Fantastic Four. Sure, their lives may have started over in this new universe, but they're almost exactly the same people. Is this Reed seeing the meta-narrative behind their existence? 'Cause that'd be flippin' cool. Reed's second bit of news is that he tracked the second object that fell from the anomaly, and it's in Wakanda, which is great news. Sue actually knows its king, T'Challa, from her time as head of the Storm Foundation. She has reached out and gotten permission for her and Reed to visit. Ben is upset at being left behind, but then Reed informs him that Alicia called and left a message. Ben has a date. And I'm guessing that Sue left Johnny off the guest list because he's kind of obnoxious. After Reed and Sue leave, Ben is fretting about his date to Johnny when an intruder alarm goes off. They discover the mysterious dude from earlier in the issue, and it's a cliffhanger. Ha! In Wakanda, Reed and Sue meet T'Challa. He informs them of his missing men and his intent to find whatever fate has befallen them. Needing to inspire his people, T'Challa suits up as the warrior avatar, the Black Panther. Having now prepared for action, the Panther then leaves to meet with his council. I mean, why do this now? Why build us up only to back off? They could have easily just landed, met with T'Challa, gotten an update, and then left with the Black Panther in the morning. Anyway, Reed and Sue kiss, make out, make love. It's pretty vague, and the night passes. As the party moves through the jungle the next day, Reed sees signs of mutation everywhere. They know they're getting close, and it's confirmed as something attacks them. The Panther's warriors fall quickly. A grenade lands amongst them, and Sue barely manages to throw a force field around herself and Reed. They recover, though, and continue tracking the cosmic radiation. They discover a plane in the forest, and Wingfoot is there overseeing the loading. The Panther joins them then, having jumped clear of the blast. They approach the aircraft, but containment walls spring up around them. Before they can do anything, the group is shocked out cold, loaded onto the plane, and taken. They all wake up in another country. As they start to get their bearings, their host greets them. Reed recognizes the voice, even through the vocal distortion. And how, honestly, could Reed hope to ever forget the one man who was his superior? Dr. Victor von Doom, King of Latveria. If I had some ominous triumphant music, I'd play it here. I don't own a lot of books featuring Doom, but I love what I have. And this book was the start of that love. Jim Lee's visual adaptation is amazing, a glorious, detailed, 2-page spread. And the setup to get here, manufacturing everything up to this point, outthinking Reed Richards every step of the way. Doom hacked the Storm Foundation's computer, somehow turned a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent against S.H.I.E.L.D., figured out what was inside the wormhole, had the Excelsior hijacked, the anomaly blown up, and then sent Wingfoot into the jungle, knowing that Reed would eventually investigate, giving him the chance to kidnap him. That's awesome. Now we just need to figure out why he's gone to all this trouble. I'd also like to add that this was my introduction to the Black Panther. As annoyed as I am with how Lee and Choi bungled that intro, I loved meeting the Panther here. He's a king, he's a superhero warrior, he's able to jump at the speed of an exploding grenade, he can sneak up on Reed and Sue, and the kicker, he has blue text for his word balloons. It immediately makes him seem quiet and stealthy, like he's calmly whispering, but you can still impossibly hear him. Panther is a character I'm hoping to explore more of in the future on this podcast. I've heard a lot of good about Christopher Priest's run, and I love Ta-Nehisi Coates' current run. And this introduction, like I said, well bungled at the beginning, is pretty solid. So, that said, let's see what Doom is up to. We're back at the Baxter Building, where Johnny and Ben are confronting their mystery intruder from the last issue. And it's Wyatt Wingfoot. What the flippin' heck? Has this guy got a death wish? Ben is ready to beat the ever-loving snot out of Wingfoot. After all, it was Wingfoot's actions that led him to being a rocky monster, but Johnny talks him down. Given what he did to the team, why would Wingfoot risk coming to the fore? Wingfoot explains that he had nothing to do with stealing their ship. 4 weeks ago, 4 weeks, was that intentional? Wingfoot was sent to Eastern Europe to investigate the hacking into of the Storm Foundation. He was then betrayed and imprisoned. He just managed to escape a few days ago and came to warn Reed Richards. Wakanda is a trap. He can't go. But, funny story, Ben tells Wingfoot that Reed and Sue already left. Whoops. But I'm sure that they're fine. We'll just call to double check. But no one answers. Well, that's weird. Wingfoot insists that they leave now. Their friends might already be in the clutches of Victor Von Doom. And man, is he right. So, okay, this is a cool bit of story. This explains why Fury was unaware of Wingfoot's actions in regards to the Excelsior, and it references the hacking we heard about in issue 3. I was initially thrown off by how bloodthirsty Ben is here. I mean, he is ready to beat Wingfoot into a paste. Johnny's supposed to be the hothead here, thank you very much. But then he mentions that he blames Wyatt for his transformation, and I like that. All of the characters acclimated to their powers so quickly that it's easy to forget that Ben was human only a month ago. And speaking of acclimating, Johnny lightly singes the beard off Wingfoot to confirm his identity. This is one of those you've only had your powers for a month and your control is that good moments. I just don't know if I buy that, especially with someone as relaxed as Johnny. I really doubt that he'd be sitting around practicing his ability to fire shave. Our introduction to Doom continues here. He's rude, if politely rude. Is it possible to be politely rude? To his guests, explaining that he knew that Reed would investigate whatever fell to Wakanda. Then all he had to do was prepare, and it was so easy. God, you're dumb, Reed. Anyway, Reed and Doom clearly know each other, and Sue asks what's up with that. So Reed explains that, in college, he made a lot of friends in the sciences. Curious and driven, they jokingly called themselves the Knights of the Atomic Round Table. This group obviously consisted of Reed and Victor, but it also featured Marvel mainstays like Tony Stark, Bruce Banner, Henry Pym, and a new character named Rebel O'Reilly. Not that Doom considered them friends. For all of their intelligence, they lacked ambition. Tony just wanted to sell the suit that the Knights had been building, whereas Victor wanted to change the world. Tony accused him of just wanting to use the suit to conquer Latveria, but then the accident happened. No one could agree on a use for their suit, so the prototype was shelved. Or it was supposed to be shelved. Victor pushed ahead anyway, donning the prototype despite any misgivings that Reed pointed out. Victor asked Reed to stay, to push ahead with the experiment together. Reed was the one man that he felt any kind of bond with, but Reed turned him down. This suit didn't belong to any one member of the table, but to them all. Reed left to get the others. Victor pushed ahead. Upon activating the system, the suit detonated, destroying the lab, Victor's body, and his chances in school. He was expelled and, last Reed knew, had gone to Tibet in search of a cure for his pain. Man, that is flippin' intense! Okay, first thing, what an epic retelling of Doom's origin. I love this. There's triumph, there's tragedy, there's hopeful arrogance, and what should be a crippling defeat. Given how long-running the Richards-Doom feud is in the mainstream Fantastic Four comics, it's easy to forget that these guys were once friends. But I love Doom reaching out to Reed in that last moment. Intellectually cut off from the world, Victor reaches out for the one person who might understand. And it isn't even that Reed doesn't get it, just that Reed has morals. Betraying the trust of the others is wrong, and so Doom ends up physically cut off from the world, by physical pain and a suit of armor, as well as emotionally and intellectually isolated. What an amount of pathos to get into just 2 pages. I also really loved the Atomic Knights. One of the things that rebooting an existing property allows a writer to do is pull things together, weave a more cohesive image. I like that the brilliant minds of the Marvel Universe all went to school together. These guys basically prototyped the Iron Man armor. And it's a clever inspiration as to why Doom wears what appears to be a sophisticated, yet archaic, suit of armor himself. There's no way his pride would let that failure stand. He would have to perfect the suit on his own terms. Okay, enough gushing. Reed's finished his story and wants to know why Doom has gone to all these lengths. And so Doom opens a massive door, revealing the key to unlimited power. The Silver Surfer. What? Dude, how awesome is that? So, it turns out that the stellar anomaly was the Surfer generating a wormhole to our planet. He was attacked by Wingfoot and fell to Wakanda, where he was then retrieved. Since then, Doom has been attempting to siphon off the Surfer's life force. What we know is called the power cosmic. But Doom hasn't had any luck at it either. He even fries the latest scientist for his latest failure, and then turns to Reed. It was the Surfer's powers that altered the Four. Doom knows that Reed has studied their transformation, and, as a result, may have some insight into this creature and its powers that Doom lacks. Naturally, Reed initially turns him down. This is both insane and morally wrong. So Doom threatens Sue, who fights back. T'Challa and Reed follow her lead, yay for Sue, but Doom zaps Sue and Reed, rendering them helpless. The Panther took this chance to escape, but he'll be back. Doom orders evil Wingfoot to catch T'Challa, but Wingfoot gives him some sass. Given that Doom doesn't really need Wingfoot anymore, I'm not exactly sure why Doom doesn't just fry him like he did the scientist. But evil Wingfoot ultimately complies and, once away, contacts one of his minions. The Herald is almost ready. His contact replies with, "Understood, clerk." When I first read this issue as a kid, that didn't mean anything to me. I just didn't have that much experience with the broader Marvel Universe. Now, though, I get that reference. I'm going to save my reaction for the big reveal. I just wanted to let you guys know that I know what that means. We'll get there. So, with Sue strapped to some kind of horrible sci-fi torture device, Reed gets to work. The other half of the Four, plus good Wingfoot, land in Latveria. They park their ship and start to make their way to Castle Doom. That's when an enormous hologram of Doom's head appears, ordering them to surrender. Ben doesn't, naturally, and that means fighting an army of Doombots. For the uninitiated, a Doombot is pretty much a mindless, simply programmed robot employed by Doom for basic protection. They can usually fly and shoot laser blasts or energy beams. Against the pretty domesticated people of Latveria, they are super effective. Against the Thing and Human Torch, though, not so much. Wingfoot even manages to down a pair. What a useless group of cannon fodder. The group reaches the sewer drain that they're going to sneak through and meet more Doombots. Thankfully, the Black Panther is there too and helps them escape the fight. The Doombots go to give Jace when a blast of energy takes them down. It's evil Wingfoot and his minions. The time has come to turn the trap on Doom as well. Once he's deactivated the rest of Doom's army, it'll be time to strike. This is where I would rub my hands gleefully if I was evil Wingfoot. At the distillation chamber, Doom makes a great red wine. Reed has finished fixing or building or programming whatever it is. You know what? He's finished sciencing whatever it was that Doom wanted him to science. All Doom has to do now is grab those handles and the transfer will begin. Should take 5 minutes and your very survival will depend on your mind, stamina, and willpower. Good luck, Victor. This should be easy. Wrong, because that's when the rescue team arrives. While Doom and his bots are busy fighting, Reed frees Sue. She immediately asks about the surfer, even ordering Reed to help the others fight while she frees him. I love your compassion, Sue. She was the only one who thought to reason with Namor, and now she wants to save a mysterious alien? You go, girl. While everyone is busy punching, evil Wingfoot grabs the energy transference paddles and absorbs the power cosmic. Evil Wingfoot, or rather, Kl'rt of the tribe Nemesis of the Galactic Skrull Empire, transforms, revealing himself to be an alien. And now, with the power cosmic coursing through his body, he has become the Super Skrull. Yes! Hell yeah! Guys, I love the Super Skrull. Probably because I don't know if you folks did this as a kid, but composite characters were my first original characters, if you can consider a character made of other characters an original character. I'm talking like, I created a mutant who has Colossus's metal skin, and Wolverine's adamantium claws, and Archangel's techno-organic wings. Awesome! Well, that's basically what the Super Skrull is. Skrulls are one of the most important alien races in the Marvel Universe, and they're longtime foes of the Fantastic Four. Gifted naturally with the ability to shift their appearance, hence evil Wingfoot, the Super Skrull also has the powers of the Fantastic Four. But he's evil. And I love how the hero's narrative includes the creation of the Super Skrull here. It works so well. And I actually think it makes more sense of why Kl'rt ends up with the Four's powers. They're all changed by the power cosmic, and Kl'rt is able to use his shape-shifting to mimic the Four. That feels much more natural than Skrull High Command deciding that the best way to defeat the Four is to have one dude with all of their powers fight them. So, in one issue, we've had Doom, lots of action, the Silver Surfer, and the Super Skrull. We're riding high, and there's only one more issue to go with this arc. Issue 6 opens at Alicia's apartment, the phone ringing. Alicia answers, hoping that it's Ben Grimm, but nope. It's her friend, who is understandably upset about Alicia being stood up. And so is Alicia, but she's an adult, she can take care of herself. She reassures her friend that she's okay and hangs up, wondering if Ben is even interested in her, or if he's off saving the world. We don't have to wonder though, because we know that Ben is off saving the world. The Super Skrull blasts Doom, sick of his arrogant posturing. He generates force fields with ease and overloads Doom's armor. Before Kl'rt can turn on the rest of them, Reed slips in some quick questions. What is this all about? Kl'rt then gives us a crash course on Galactus. Years ago, the Silver Surfer led its master, Galactus, to the Skrull homeworld. A being of immense power and unending hunger, Galactus consumes whole planets. Kl'rt and the other surviving Skrulls want revenge. They track the Surfer here to a planet long ago seeded by Galactus. Now that the crops are ripe, he'll be returning soon. But with the power cosmic, the Skrulls can finally destroy him. Jafar, another Skrull armed with a loudmouth parrot, informs Kl'rt that shield aircraft are on the way, a contingency plan that Wingfoot forgot to mention. Putting up a massive shield, the Super Skrull destroys the ships and their pilots with ease. Enraged by the Skrull's actions, the Thing launches at him. The Torch dives in as well, but the Skrull adapts, mimicking their powers and managing to hold his own. While distracted, the Panther suggests that they revive the Surfer. Sue brings up the good point that this guy might be a harbinger of death. You know, that little thing. But they don't know if it's true, Reed argues, and if they're going to learn the truth, they need the Surfer. Working together with Doom, the Panther gets the scroll to fire off a massive blast of energy. Sue uses her force field to guide it back to the Surfer. Reed and Doom work quickly to recalibrate the devices for absorption, and then it hits. Through the plasma vapor steps a restored Silver Surfer. I like the teamwork here. Coming together against a common foe is a pretty tried and true plot device in comics, and it's perfectly executed here. Everyone has a role to play, and they couldn't do it otherwise. Love that stuff. The Surfer and the Skrull, man, lots of the names in this Fantastic Four book, start blasting at each other Dragon Ball Z style. As everyone else books it, Doom casually mentions that the energy discharges have ruptured the walls of the fission reactor in his castle, and that's kind of bad. He dismisses Reed's help, for only Doom could stop the meltdown. The four, plus Wingfoot and the Panther, escape as the castle falls around them. Safely outside, our heroes watch an explosion destroy the castle. But Johnny notes that they're all still breathing. Doom must have saved the reactor. Reed doesn't think so. Victor is brilliant, but there just wasn't enough time. He suspects greater powers were in play, by which he means the Silver Surfer. Ben gets them moving. That Varian Air Force is on the way now, and they take off. Reed was right. It was the Surfer who sealed the walls and staved off the blast. These humans had shown him compassion. For the first time in this new life of his, not referring to the Heroes Reborn universe, but rather his existence as the Silver Surfer, and it's only fair. The Surfer watches as they fly away, his eyes shadowed. Whew. I'm consistently amazed by this book's ability to be both action-packed and yet still filled with dialogue and exposition. So we've had Galactus added to the Heroes Reborn universe, and he is headed for Earth. That's going to be fun. So with the Surfer revealed, this means that the carvings on Monster Island are somehow connected to Galactus as well, and that's a new thing, but it's a good explanation why only this one island has moloids and huge monsters. Hopefully we'll see that subplot pay off before the book ends. Just so you guys know, there's more comic to this particular issue. The very end of this issue is a prologue dedicated to the upcoming Industrial Revolution crossover that runs through all the Heroes Reborn books. So I'm going to hold off on that portion for now. Revolution happens in issue 6 of all 4 books, so I'm going to cover 1 through 5 of Captain America, Iron Man, and the Avengers first. Once we're all on the same page, I'll come back for the portion of this issue and just do a dedicated episode for the whole crossover. I hope that you guys don't mind the wait, but I think from a story perspective, that's going to make more sense. We've now covered half a year of Fantastic Four comics. So where do I stand? I mean, if my gushing wasn't obvious enough, I loved this. I like how Lee and Choi have pulled so many different plot threads, the Mole Man, the Surfer, Wakanda, Doom, Galactus, into one massive backstory. Namor is perhaps the most out-of-left-field inclusion, but even that is hard to complain about because it's so well executed. The characters all sound right, but this is something I kind of don't like, actually. The point of a reboot is to modernize and update characters and stories, but everyone here looks and sounds exactly like their previous selves. Where's the new, the modern? What makes Heroes Reborn Ben Grimm different from 616 Ben Grimm? By 616, I'm referring to the numerical designation of the normal Marvel Universe. This was a concept introduced way years ago in the Marvel Universe where there's multiple universes within the comic books being published, and the particular Marvel Universe where most of their titles are published is the 616th of those universes. It's kind of just shorthand and an easy way to specifically designate what's going on in the Marvel comic books from something that's going on in an alternate reality or another dimension or a future timeline. So whenever you hear me refer to the 616 reality, that's what I'm referring to. And my brain then argues that that is the point. These aren't new interpretations of the Fantastic Four. These are the classic Fantastic Four, just reliving their lives in a pocket reality or whatever this is. Them sounding as they've always sounded is a good thing in that light. But I can't help but want something new. I don't hold this against the creative team. They didn't know when they started the Reborn books that they would only last a year. They had to treat this title as if it would go on for another 60 years, and in that sense, sticking to what works is a good thing. They killed on that side of things. So as far as I'm concerned, we're off to a great start here. Next week, I'll be covering the first 5 issues of Captain America. We get a new backstory for Cap, a new gender for Bucky, a really creepy blood transfusion, and, for better or worse, lots of Rob Liefeld artwork. Everyone, there are a million podcasts vying for your time and attention, and I'd like to thank you for listening to mine. If you would like to get in touch with me, to share a concern, request a series, compliment me, berate me, whatever you like, send me an email at cbbreakdown@gmail.com. Otherwise, thanks for listening.